Chapter 4. The Chorus Model. You learned early that certain parts of you were not welcome at the table. Not in those words. Nobody said, leave that part of yourself outside. What they said was quieter and more thorough than that. They said it in the way the room went still when you said the wrong thing. In the way your father's face changed, or didn't change, which was worse. In the way the other boys responded to the one who showed too much, who needed too much, who was moved too visibly by something the framework had decided was not worth being moved by. In the way the coach or the teacher or the older man who was supposed to model what you were becoming demonstrated, through every interaction, what was allowed and what was not. You learned. You learned which parts of yourself were welcome and which parts had to wait in the car. And because you were smart and you wanted to survive, and survival required a specific kind of fluency, you got very good at the management of it. You learned to assemble the right version of yourself before you walked into the rooms that required it. You learned which parts belonged where. You learned to read the temperature of a situation before you added yourself to it. You probably got very good at this. You may have been told it was a gift. Steady, reliable. Doesn't make things complicated. What it actually was, exhausting. And underneath the exhaustion, something else. The slow erosion of being unable to remember, after enough years of management, which parts of you were real and which parts were the performance of the parts that were allowed. This is the chapter about that erosion, and about what is on the other side of it. Here is what the framework will tell you about this experience. It will tell you nothing. The framework does not have a conversation about this. The framework's account of the male self does not include the management, does not acknowledge the chorus, does not have a category for the exhaustion of the performance. The framework presents the singular man as the natural state, which means there is no experience to name and no erosion to address and no other side to get to. What you have been doing is invisible inside the framework. What you have been doing is real. You knew this already. You have been knowing it your whole life. What you may not have had is permission to stop pretending otherwise. Here is what we know from the research. The goal of psychological health is not the elimination of the parts that cause trouble. It is the development of a relationship among them. A self, with a capital S, that can hear all the parts without being hijacked by any of them. Not a unified self, a self that is capable of hosting the whole chorus. The chorus. This is the metaphor we will use throughout this chapter because it is more accurate than excavation and more useful than parts. You are not a thing to be dug up. You are not broken into pieces. You are a chorus. Multiple voices, different registers, different histories, all of them yours, none of them the whole of you. The question is not, which one is real? They are all real. The question is, who is conducting? For most of your life, if you grew up inside the dominant framework of masculinity, the answer to that question was, not you. The conductor was the mold. The mold had a shape. In the family or the community or the culture that transmitted it to you, the shape was specific. Strong, self-sufficient, not too much. Knows what he thinks. Doesn't need to talk about it. The mold is not unique to any one geography. It exists wherever men have been organized around the performance of invulnerability, which is most places, which is most of male history. The specific contents of the mold differ. The function is the same, to designate which parts of the chorus are permitted to sing and which parts must be silent. And the silent parts do not disappear. This is the thing the mold never accounts for. The waiting has a cost. The cost is paid over years and decades, and it accumulates in the body and in the choices and in the slow erosion of knowing who you actually are beneath the management. And then something happens. For some men, it is a crisis. The mold breaks under pressure, and everything suppressed comes through at once. For some men, it is slower. A book, a conversation, a relationship that required more than the managed version could give. A moment of recognition so quiet it barely registered until later when you looked back and understood that something shifted. For some men, it is simply exhaustion, the performance finally costing more than it purchases. Whatever opens the door, what is on the other side is the same thing. The chorus, which has been there the whole time, waiting to be heard. And now you get to do something different.